I said this even, I think, whenever we've tried to do film movements, like, international cinema or whatever large sort of groupings of films we've discussed, or tour collections we've sort of discussed, I always say this, but I found a much more articulate way of someone putting it across, which I think I'm just going to borrow it, and it kind of is also me saying how much I'm borrowing from this book when I talk about the introduction of this filmmaker and everything around him. So I think there's one thing that David Lynch and the co-writer of his memoir, Christine McKenna, the memoir is titled Room to Dream, and it was published in 2018. And one of the few things in the introduction they say, and I think it's wonderful, and it sort of encapsulates everything, whatever we do essentially is sort of encapsulated in this, which is, and I think they say this about the memoir, which is human consciousness is too vast to fit between the covers of a book, and every experience has too many facets to count. We aim to be definite, but it's still merely a glimpse. This applies tenfold to the podcast medium, and especially to whatever we are doing. Even though we are taking our whole year to cover each and every David Lynch film, there is no way we are going to be providing a definitive account of what it is to watch a David Lynch film, what it is to live, like, experience it. You have to go through it yourself. And I think part of the joys of his films, at least for me, have been sort of, molding my views of them throughout time, as opposed to, you don't find definite meanings in a work which is this malleable.
The film is the thing. You work so hard to get, after the ideas come, to get this thing built, all the elements to feel correct, the whole to feel correct, in this beautiful language called cinema. And the second it's finished, people want you to change it back into words. And it's very, very saddening. It's a torture. It's the film. The language is cinema. When things are concrete, very few variations in interpretation. But the more abstract a thing gets, the more varied the interpretations. But people still know inside what it is for them. And even if they don't trust their intuition, I always say that if some girl named Sally, she comes out of the theater, I don't have a clue what that means. She goes over with Bob and Jim to get a cup of coffee. Bob starts talking about what he thinks it is, because he knows exactly what it is. He starts talking. 5 seconds later, Sally is saying, no, it's not that. And all this things comes out of Sally. So Sally really did know for herself. That's the beauty of it. It's just like life. You see the same things, but you come up with many, many different things as you go along as a detective.
That's just a good way to start our David Lynch year, as opposed to month, which is a very exciting thing. I have every month this year, I have something to look forward to, this means, which is more than I can say about many years or months of past. Anyways, our whole idea is to not just celebrate him in one episode, but throughout the year. He's one of my favorite filmmakers. He's one of the filmmakers who I don't want to say got me into filmmaking, but film viewing, film criticism, film whatever I'm trying to do. But he is one of the filmmakers who is key to me getting into a certain brand of art cinema, which I wouldn't have gotten into other than him and one other of his colleagues, which I will mention somehow in this discussion, because, they came up together and studied in the same conservatory for the or like the AF American Film Institute and all that. But yes, all that will come later. We will start with our customary hello. Welcome to our David Lynch. What do I call this? I've named this on our WhatsApp group. I've named this whole thing as the strange story, which I think is quite nice, but then I've named it, so me saying it's nice doesn't really mean anything. But the strange story sounds nice to me just because, of course, it's a play on one of his films, which we'll talk about later. But it is David Lynch, and strangeness is a key factor to his films, to his sensibility, to him I'm sure I will be finding some wonderful clips of him speaking because his voice is gold also.
It doesn't matter what I say. Zip. It can only be a negative. The thing is built so you don't want to take anything away and you don't want to add anything to it. It's complete. That's it. And that's it. And if the author is, I always say, like, somebody wrote this book and the poor guy died. So you can't dig him up and ask him, what this book means. You just love the book and you come to your own conclusion.
I'm going to use is as opposed to was in his context, I think, because again, for me, I've always lived with filmmakers through their films. So I'm not going to sort of, let that pass by, even though the filmmaker has passed and everything. And his films are so much about connecting sort of the spirit world and the real world in many senses that it feels very reductive to reduce him to a person as such. Anyways, that's the maximum amount of sentimentality I will infuse into this. I won't get more senti from my angle at least. But anyways, I have Chris rejoining me in all the episodes, I think, hopefully, for this David Lynch binge. And we have a very special new guest in Devarsi Ghosh, who we got into contact with because of Instagram. Good things happen on social media. Surprise, surprise. I don't think I believe in it, but this particular instance did happen. So yes, Devarsi, please introduce yourself if you want to. And yes, thank you so much for joining us on our first David Lynch episode.
Thank you, Dhruv, for having me on the podcast. I am a film journalist. I've been
Yep.
working since 2016.
Yep.
And I love David Lynch. What can I say?
Yeah, no, I think that's one of the first things I did when we had planned this, that I wanted to actually not just restrict it to, a group of people who consistently come on the podcast, but David Lynch fans who've probably seen all of his work, who've been so inundated with his style and sensibility, and love his work so much. So I think we'll probably get a selection of people throughout these episodes. We have two people who are meant to be here, two other people who have dropped out because they were busy. They weren't, and they informed me. So this is, who this is a dig at. If people are
Dhruv,
good
when will you
listeners.
stop?
Sorry. Anyways, they did inform me, so it counts. Sorry. Anyways, I'm going to start this episode off by talking about a brief sort of intro on David Lynch for whoever is unfamiliar with him. This is all taken from Room to Dream, which is I've just started reading it, in the process of reading it. So, if you want
Sir,
to
you read?
read an audiobook, both double. I
Okay.
was doing double thing, anyways, but more reading in this case because I was taking notes. But anyways, no, it's not, as you are a philosophy masters, right? So it's not. It's a very cut, like straight cut, sort of what happened, sort of account in his life, as opposed to all the jargony, stuff which I'm I spent a year reading film theory. Please, I deserve some credit. But anyways, no. So on David Lynch. So he was born in Missoula on January 20th, 1946, to Edwina Sundholm and Donald Lynch. He spent a majority of his childhood in Boise, Idaho, which is sort of a big thing when it comes to, when we will come to talk about some stuff like Blue Velvet. I think it's a central, the vibe of that place sort of transmutes rather perfectly into that film. And even there's, if you've seen David Lynch, you'll see us talking about all of his films in a sort of, the more we talk about him, I think the more we'll form a sort of collective of a lot of things that happen, because there is a connection in all of his stuff that goes back and forth. So I think that will come to. But I thought, so what I've done is, rather than going through his life bit by, in succession, I've taken certain anecdotes from the book, which I think encapsulate a lot of the things which tell you about his sensibility, tell you about his childhood. So I think one of the in the opening chapter of the book, I think there's a key anecdote about Lynch's upbringing from his first wife, Peggy Reevy. who will also feature in this episode's discussion. She says, quote, something David told me about his parents that was extraordinary was that if any of their kids had an idea for something they wanted to make or learn about, it was taken absolutely seriously. They had a workshop where they had all kinds of things, and the question immediately became, how do we make this work? It moved from being something in your head to something out in the world real fast, and that was a powerful thing, which I think is firstly, and end quote, one of the great things to read or listen to anywhere. A good sort of lesson. I know it's not like a teaching session, but like it's a great sort of uh, if someone's parents instill that mentality into them, it's a huge thing for them. And given how free his art feels, I think it informed this sort of anecdote informed his sensibility really perfectly. Anyways, after Boise, Idaho, he went to Alexandria, Virginia, near Washington D.C. for his high school. That's where his love for oil painting sort of began, and many figures in his life cultivated his love for oil painting. But I think one of the central ones, again, someone who will sort of reappear throughout actually all of his films also, but especially in the beginning period, is Jack Fisk, who is a very well known production designer now. And he, I think, befriended Jack Fisk there, and from there on their collaboration started on a lot of the projects that will go on later. So after that, from I think he dropped out of college in Boston, then moved to Philadelphia in 1960s to work with Fisk, and attended the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts there. He made his first short there, I think, which is Six Men Getting Sick, which is a very, you can clearly see, the meshing of film and oil painting, the first instance of it really be there. It's more of an oil painting than a film. It's basically painting moving. The whole paint, that was the whole idea behind it. And it's really, I don't know if it's it's not like some masterwork or whatever, but it's a very good glimpse into his sensibility, or his style at least, of art, which sort of translates again to his films. But one of the things that there's all sort of a pre-build up also to our introductions to David Lynch and to Eraserhead in some ways. But another anecdote that was there was, quote, the core event of the David Lynch creation myth took place early in 1967 while working on a painting depicting, and this is 1967 is the year Six Men Getting Sick released, I think. While working on a painting depicting a figure standing among foliage rendered in dark shades of green, he sensed what he's described as a quote unquote little wind and saw a flicker of movement in the painting. Like a gift bestowed on him from the ether, the idea of the moving painting clicked into focus in his mind. So I think from there on, you can then see him move very gradually from Six Men Getting Sick to his other short films, Alphabet, which I saw yesterday again, and it was incredibly creepy in just creating that atmosphere of unknowability and just dread. And then he made, I think, The Grandmother, which I still haven't seen, which is a 34-minute short. And then he went to, and these were, I think, made at AFI, if I'm not wrong, or at least before he went to AFI. Like, I think they were sort of his way into AFI, which is the American Film Institute. So, yeah, I think before we then sort of delve into that phase of his life and sort of begin talking about Eraserhead and his collaboration with Jack Fisk and his inspirations and just the long-winded production of Eraserhead and what then it came to be. I guess I'm gonna, after my dry introduction, I let everyone else here talk about their personal introductions to David Lynch and what they have gotten out of his work. Because this is very much a celebration of his work, as opposed to, it's not like a one of those obituaries of his work or something. It's supposed to be just a discussion. I actually don't even think I'm thinking about the fact that if he's passed away or not. It's very much, I've gotten an opportunity. I've convinced people to come and talk about a filmmaker I love so much. So, it's more of that. So, Devarsi will begin with you if you're comfortable. If not, then
Yeah,
Chris will go. Okay, no. If Devarsi, go ahead. Yeah.
yeah. So, in my early days of discovering cinema that is not Bollywood,
Yeah.
which is cinema that is instantly received
Mm-hmm.
as an Indian who's not from the South.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you would have your South mainstream films coming to you without
Mm-hmm.
you going out of your way to find it.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was first going out of my way to find what else is out there and outside of regular Hollywood that would come on Star Movies or
Yeah.
HBO, I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking of the 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
So then, what is understood as the film bro canon, Tarantino,
Yeah.
Fincher, and Nolan, and
Yeah.
all of that, those were the directors that you would get as a prescription that you have to kind of go through this to
Mm.
get your cinephile bona fides.
Mm.
So one of them was David Lynch, and that was because so up until at least the 2000s,
Mm-hmm.
David Lynch hadn't really become a critical darling.
Mm.
He was more of an underground weird figure,
Mm-hmm.
like say Jim Jarmusch, even in
Sure.
the American kind of mainstream.
Yeah. This is pre-internet,
And
they were saying, right? Like you were talking sort of pre, or like just the boom of the internet.
just the boom of the
Sure.
internet.
Yeah.
And the way kind of the way David Lynch is popular now, he wasn't around 2000s. And the
Sure.
only popular thing he had made was Twin Peaks.
Mm-hmm.
And Twin Peaks, I think, ended its run around 93 or 94. And after
Yeah.
that, peak TV had begun, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sopranos and all of those things.
Yeah.
So David Lynch had ceased to be kind of somebody would come across every day in American media.
Sure.
The thing that changed all of that was Mulholland Drive, because
Mm.
Mulholland Drive was a huge kind of critical success, and
Yeah.
I think it won the award at Cannes.
Yeah. I think he
I
won
think
Best Director, if I'm not wrong.
right.
Yeah.
So that suddenly brought David Lynch up on everybody's radar,
Mm.
and that is how he entered the what I refer to as the film bro canon.
Yeah.
Suddenly, David Lynch entered into that quite
Yeah.
late. And Mulholland Drive was my introduction. And what can I say? I watched Mulholland Drive in 2009, 2010. So I would
Mm-hmm.
have been how old? I think I was 19 or 20.
Mm.
So at 19 or 20, when I watched and Mulholland Drive, I mean, these days in all these film sites,
Mm-hmm.
you see such and such film explained, such and such plot details.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
this has become ubiquitous now, right? So
Yeah.
back then it wasn't, these sort of articles weren't there.
Yeah.
But I can tell you confidently that Mulholland Drive was the first film which made me Google
Yes.
Mulholland Drive explain.
Absolutely.
Mulholland Drive analysis. No
Yeah.
other, even Fight Club I did not need Fight Club
Yeah.
for all of that. But Mulholland Drive made me do that.
Yeah.
And for a while, it was popular among us because of the sex scene between
Yeah.
the two leads.
Was
Yes.
that a very in I don't know, can you call who produced Mulholland Drive? I'm forgetting this, but because I think it's a French production. Studio Canal put in money or whatever, because I know it has a big history of it being like, a pilot that never
Definitely. Yeah,
released and
yeah.
all that. So we'll get into it whenever we talk about it. But I think the whole idea of because I'm wondering if the appeal of that sex scene was something which was very alien to Hollywood at that time, I suppose.
Possible.
Yeah.
Very much possible because I can't remember or not that I'm a huge authority on Hollywood cinema, but I can't
Yeah.
recall any other lesbian sex scene kind of making such an
Mhm.
impact.
I think
But
Bound came. I've not seen it. The
Bound was a small
Wachowskis.
film. Bound
Oh
was,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
small.
I know
Yeah,
Bound,
much
but
smaller
it was
film.
a
Yeah.
small film.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so my first introduction happened with Mulholland Drive,
Mhm.
and it was a like a game changer for me. It
Sure.
really that um, film could be this.
Mhm.
I mean, this is how films change you. Like
Yeah.
when you watch a film and it gets locked in your head, and you think, oh, cinema could be this.
Mhm.
I think like the last time I felt such a thing from a new film
Mhm.
was with All That Breathes by Sean Astin.
Mhm.
Like this can be cinema. This is
Yeah.
how you can see the world.
Mhm.
So that was the effect that Mulholland Drive had on me. Like this is also how you can tell a story.
Mhm.
This is also how you can interpret something.
Sure.
Um, and after that, I think immediately I watched Eraserhead.
Eraserhead. Okay.
And I did not get Eraserhead at all when
Yeah.
I was 21 or something. I did
Yeah.
not get it at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, the effect of the sound design and the image
Yeah.
and the cinematography, all of that had its effect.
Hmm.
Much later, I don't remember when, I
Hmm.
watched Eraserhead again.
Hmm.
And I think in my mid 20s or late 20s.
Hmm.
And in my mid 20s and late 20s, I was obviously going through my Imtiaz Ali sort of situations in life. So because
I
I
did
was
not
going through,
expect Imtiaz Ali to drop to have
no,
what is it called, ghost appearance.
Special
It's supposed to
appearance.
no, a ghost appearance.
that's just an immediate shorthand to suggest like romantic and
Yeah, yeah, of
coming of
course,
age turmoil basically.
of course,
So
yeah,
because I was going through those things, then when I watched Eraserhead, I was like, oh,
yeah. Mm.
so this is about a straight man's anxiety, basically.
Yeah,
This is what the film is about. I
yeah,
get it now. I
yeah.
get everything now. So then I was like, wow, this is really a bro film. And and this is a fantastic bro film. I think this
Yeah.
is, and I have maintained it whenever I have discussed
Mm.
Eraserhead with anybody. I maintained
Mm.
this that this is the best film I've ever seen about
Mm.
a straight man's anxiety
Mm.
in their 20s.
Mm-hmm.
Full stop.
Yeah.
I
No,
mean,
I think
anxiety about sex,
yeah,
marriage. Should
yeah,
Mm.
I marry this girl? Should I, cheat? Or
yeah.
should I become a father? Or
Mm.
what do I say to my in-laws? That sort of thing.
I mean, those
Yeah.
in-laws, we'll get to them. Um,
We'll-
but yeah, no, I think that's a great intro actually, Devarsi, because I think it encapsulates a lot of. I mean, my experiences rhyme with yours also. But Chris, I want you to go first because I gave my dry introduction first. So yeah,
No, yeah, I think at least emotionally, I think the experience is a lot similar. But my introduction happens to David Lynch thanks to Dhruv here.
that's why I've
About
invited you just to make you thank me.
I know, I know, I am the one person in your life who actually listens to your movie recommendations.
That's the
So it's an
sad. That's
obligatory
one of
present.
the most sad things I've heard. But yeah, it's true. I agree.
You should thank me for doing
Oh,
that
but
for you, okay?
I know. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so about last year as Dhruv and I were becoming friends, he was my again as Devarsi was saying, my exposure to cinema was very much limited to Bollywood and Malayalam cinema, which I grew up with thanks to my family.
Mm,
And whatever English movies I watched was whatever was on TV and that kind of James Bonds and those kind of stuff.
mhm,
So I wasn't really exposed to a lot of this kind of artsy cinema. And through our conversations, you recommended a number of films to me, especially since your interest is so much in informal like experimentation.
mm.
And I was also introduced via Mulholland Drive. And again, it's one of those films that I know I say this a little bit too often, but it's that you feel like a different person after you have
You're 21. You're
watched.
allowed to say
I
that. I think.
That
Uh,
is true.
yeah,
No, but it's one of those things where I was prepared for it to be like weird because I've heard of Lynch plenty in the
yeah.
sort of
I think we'll
Ugro
talk
canon
about
kind
that
of
later, like
yeah.
all the weird and what does weird mean in his context and everything. 'Cause
Yeah,
I'm always a
absolutely.
bit. I always push back against that tag a little bit. Strange sounds
Yeah.
much better. Weird sounds a little,
Yeah, so in this, no, what I'm saying is in the sense that Lynchian is a very sort of common adjective that
Yes.
gets thrown
Yeah.
around in sort of cinephile circles and all of that. So
Mm,
I had that sort of exposure to him. Never actually watched a film, watched
mhm.
Mulholland Drive, and I was like, this is sheer insanity, and I want this for the rest of my life. Sort of, it was just
Yeah.
incredible to watch something like that, and I had full intentions to continue watching, but I
Mm,
unfortunately just didn't end up getting the opportunity till unfortunately till Lynch's passing.
mm,
And then my university ended up holding two screenings back to back of
mm,
Blue Velvet and Eraserhead, which is the first
mm.
time I watched it. So that's only a couple of months back. And then I watched actually two of the short films today, the six men getting sick and the
The
alphabet. But
alphabet. Mm,
and I also ended up thankfully got the time to rewatch Eraserhead. But I'm
mm,
just I think there's a certain, and I was telling Dhruv before this, but there is this certain experience of Lynch, and obviously we'll get more of it into that later. But that is very much about sort of being in the moment that I don't really feel that is not necessarily felt with other films, but there's a certain recognition of that moment that you're in, that I feel, you know, and especially with such a strong visual style, it's just that it's so overwhelming that I was saying that it's the first time I think I ever felt like I just need to let myself go and just like subject myself to the image, like trying to intellectualize what I'm watching and trying to quote unquote get it is just going to take away from my experience of watching this. And I felt that across the board with everything I've seen of
With the
his
three
up until
you've seen,
now,
right? Yeah. Yeah.
films and two short films, but it's surprising how sort of strong that comes off, and how quickly that just it just tells you that you're not in control. Just let yourself experience something,
Yeah.
and the struggle in a sense is how do you articulate that experience? Because to me, what I think stands out to me about the most about Lynch is, you know art is a mediated way of experiencing something or of expressing something, but I feel like something about Lynch is simultaneously extremely abstracted, but also to me feels like the most unmediated way of feeling something or of understanding something, because it doesn't go through your head. It goes straight into whatever emotive or
Yeah.
intuitive, as he said, system is there in your head or in your body. It hits there first, which is fascinating to me. So it's just um I think it's definitely shifted, like Devarshi was saying, that shifted how I look at films and the capability of filmmaking, fundamentally being introduced to
Sure.
someone like Lynch, for sure.
Yeah, I think you guys have pretty much summed up a lot of whatever I would have also said. I think one of the things I want to jump back to, and I think it's interesting that Devarsi mentioned how nowadays we are populated by that sort of ending explained, and if that, and to me, I think that's where my sort of thing with the when someone says Lynch films are weird, or Lynch is weird. He probably is a little bit, and I'm still using is. But yes, it's one of those things where I'm like, to me, his appeal has never struck as someone who's all that willfully obscure. I think that's that very art housey term, in the sense that you'll have filmmakers who'll go out of their way to make something which is so obscure that you kind of that probably warrants your ending explained. But to me, with Lynch, it's no, to me there is such a fundamental clarity to his emotion. Like, the emotion is so clear that the weirdness to me never feels willfully obscure ever. Like, I know there are sequences in which the film goes into these weird directions and strange places, but because the central emotion and the central theme is so and Devarsi mentioned it perfectly in some ways for Eraserhead. It's for a heterosexual white man in this sense. It's literally Eraserhead. From that, there is that particular lens you can watch it through and come across with all the feeling that entails with that particular perspective and character. There's no sort of he gives you a way in, and that way, once you're inside his world, then he sort of puts, like, makes you go in like weird directions, but because you are so easily into his world, because he is such a, I think, emotional filmmaker. I think his the emotion drives his films, as opposed to is hidden behind anything. The narrative is hidden behind stuff maybe, but the emotion isn't. And I think that's a journey, though, I think I also took with his filmmaking. Like, my initial impression, as Devarsi said, of Mulholland Drive, Mulholland Drive ending explained. It's one of those things. What analysis? Like, what happened? It's like the whole puzzle. There's the whole sub-genre of puzzle box films, which are dear to me, but increasingly they are dear to me because of how much they are successful at making you lost within that puzzle, as opposed to the puzzle itself being like, the solving of the puzzle becomes secondary. It's more a sense of sort of being lost in that puzzle. I'd put stuff like another bro film, I suppose, Memento, into that. And like other sort of I'm not, I don't know if this is blasphemous. I'm not the craziest about Pulp Fiction, but, like, other, whatever, the puzzle narrative films that sort of come in and around at that time. So but yeah, to me, it's like, now I don't want to go back to a David Lynch film to solve it. I don't care about solving a David Lynch film. I was thinking, I rewatched Eraserhead last night after 6 years. I don't know how long, and I was just like, this is like just. And now, of course, I have studied like cinema studies and all that, and I'm just like, even with all those tools, those faculties fail when a film is this successful at immersing you. It's one of those, as you guys both have said, I think it's one of those films that makes you see film and see stuff in a way which you didn't think you had the capabilities of seeing. It's what an art the best of artists do. I think it's simply making you surrender to their world in a way where you're hypnotized, where you're mesmerized by their craft, by their not just narrative, just sheer willingness to express something so powerful and meaningful. I don't think there's anything meaningless about his films. I think there is one film I saw of his on Netflix, a short film he had done, which when I watched it, I was like, this is the David Lynch film that everyone who doesn't like David Lynch talks about. And I was like, because it struck me as innocuous. It struck me as, just something that he did because Netflix had probably asked him to do. Like, it's one of those things. I forgot the name of the film. It's with a monkey and him talking to a monkey or something like that. It's one of those things which is like, oh, David Lynch is weird, so he'll do something weird. But none of his other films have struck me as such. They've always had a genuinely emotional core to them, which I think always resonates with me. So, yeah, I think my introduction, again, like all of you, has been Mulholland Drive, and then I've sort of trekked through. I've still avoided all of his quote unquote straight narrative sort of those movies. So I'm curious to watch those and see how much they appeal to me. I will I hate to put it. There'll always be one caveat. Dune is not a good film, but it's not also
My
probably not his film.
supervisor would like to disagree with you.
Your supervisor can come on this podcast and convince me, but because that I they ever say, are you in any are you a Dune defender? If you want to defend it, you can go ahead. Not the
No,
David.
I did not like Dune, David Lynch's Dune at all.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
there's a lot to like it.
There
I
is
mean,
no, no. I
when
agree.
you,
I think there's things to appreciate in it. It's just to me, it's just one of his films which I'm just like, this is a
it's
mess.
not just that there are individual things to appreciate in the film, but
Mm.
like you have been seeing, you have watched a lot of films. You are doing a film podcast. You will
Mm.
know that even when you see a bad film by
Yeah.
a director like, say, Paul W.S. Anderson, who's made
Yes.
Event Horizon,
Yes.
Resident Evil,
Yeah.
you know that that filmmaker has a vision.
Sure.
And
Absolutely. And I think that's
so
one of
when you,
the sorry, that's I think one of the complaints leveled against Villeneuve also, that Villeneuve's versions are too subordinate to the source material, whereas if you see a Lynch's Dune, it is Lynch's Dune, even though of course it's compromised. So yeah, sorry, go ahead.
right, so when
Mm.
you see Lynch's Dune,
Mm.
there are moments that just pop out because of how
Absolutely.
idiosyncratic they are,
Yeah.
and there are certain moments that have remained with me visually.
Yeah.
But overall, as a narrative, it just doesn't.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I still hold that the Harkonnens, or Lynch does the Harkonnens much better than Villeneuve, for me at least. There's that grime, like, the sliminess of them sort of comes across. Anyways, people can watch Dune if they want to, David Lynch's. We also have done the reason I've not included it in this retrospective of sorts is because we've already discussed it. I have no intentions on skipping over it just because I don't like it. There are a couple of David Lynch films I've never seen, so I'm also like, there is a possibility I won't like some of them when I watch them for the first time. So that possibility will still be there. But anyways, should we move on to areas ahead, guys? Any other thoughts on David Lynch in general, please?
Yes, I want
Yeah.
to bring up Tigmanshu Dhulia after Imtiaz
Oh wow. Okay.
Ali. No, this is in reference to what Chris was saying about
Hmm.
how David Lynch, when you watch a David Lynch film, it immediately, intuition is the word,
Yeah.
intuitively you get it,
Hmm.
right? It hits you emotionally somewhere.
Yeah.
And I remember, and I want to bring up two things, two separate filmmakers from two different worlds had said.
Mm-hmm.
One was Tigbanshu Dhulia, and
Mm-hmm.
he had said somewhere he, while dissecting the problems that contemporary Bollywood is going through, he said that हम फिल्मों की फिल्में बनाते हैं.
Mm-hmm.
We make films out of films, and
Yeah.
Pulp Fiction is a successful example of
Yes.
it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But most people cannot do it correct.
Mm-hmm.
Or so that is something he had said. And another is this is a filmmaker I don't think you guys may be aware of. He's a
Okay.
Bengali art house filmmaker. He died 2, 3 years back. He's the father of composer Alokananda Dasgupta.
Oh, I've seen his one
Uh,
film. We've discussed it, but my co-host canned that episode for some reason. We discussed
okay,
Anwar Ka Ajab Kissa.
right, right.
Yes. Yeah.
So that director is Buddhadev Dasgupta.
Yeah.
So just a year before he died, I had been lucky to interview him.
Oh.
And he told me one thing in that
Mm-hmm.
interview that he believes his films are unique
Mm-hmm.
or as unique as any good filmmakers would be
Yeah.
because he takes his images from his dreams and they are
Mm.
not borrowed from other places like other films
Sure.
or whatever.
Yeah.
So combining what Tigmanshu said and what Buddhadev said, this is very much true for David Lynch.
Mm.
David Lynch or another filmmaker who's his contemporary, David Cronenberg.
Mm.
And there's a reason I bring up Cronenberg also.
Mm-hmm.
They were filmmakers who were completely original with their images.
Yeah. Very
Completely
different
original with their
styles, but
images.
yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Totally original. Like
Yeah.
whatever David Lynch shows you in Eraserhead or
Mm.
even Blue Velvet,
Mm-hmm.
which I recently rewatched,
Mm-hmm.
or even say Mulholland Drive.
Yeah.
The way you are, yes, Mulholland Drive and Lost Highway, David Lynch is borrowing from noir imagery and noir
Yeah.
themes and tropes. All of that is fine.
Yeah.
But what he does with them, or what he
Mm.
does in Eraserhead, is so original and idiosyncratic.
Yeah.
Like, so, I mean, it is completely the opposite of how films get made today.
Yeah.
Like,
Absolutely.
filmmakers have to come up with pitch decks to
Mm-hmm.
suggest to executives. Like, my film is a combination of
Mm.
Eraserhead on a yacht,
Yeah.
okay, or Lost Highway in a Marwari wedding or something. Like this is how you are going to this movie meets this movie, but it has the flavor of
Yes.
Z movie.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That is not so. That is the reason David Lynch and David Cronenberg hits you subliminally
Mm-hmm.
in a place. And there's the other reason I brought up Cronenberg is because a lot of young filmmakers, or at least filmmakers under 40,
Mm-hmm.
who are making genre films right now, their work is often called Lynchian or Cronenbergian, right?
Yeah.
For example, The Substance.
Yeah.
The Substance borrows from imagery from both Lynch and Cronenberg films,
And
right?
Kubrick. Yes. I think
And
all
Kubrick.
three. Yeah.
But that film did not work for me at all. I
Mm.
mean, that film felt so much like a pastiche. That
Yeah.
film felt so much like a bad Tanishq Bakshi remix of, these great films.
You are
Um,
bringing in some great Hindi,
Very
references.
much in line with the ethos of this podcast. So much
Yeah, actually, yeah, you're
appreciated.
perfectly. Yeah, you're doing like we generally bring in all sorts of blasphemous comparisons, but this is good. It actually fits. I'm not the biggest Substance fan, also, so
yeah,
you're
Substance or even that film I did not like at all. The film where the girl fucks the car,
Titan.
Titan,
Titan.
Titan,
Titan.
yeah.
I mean,
Um,
she very much riffs on Cronenberg and Crash, right? That's
Yeah,
Yeah.
where are the original crazy lunatics? Like, where is the Cronin? When I want to see completely new images and new sounds, like
yeah.
how it feels watching Eraserhead.
I
I
feel
mean,
it's
imagine watching Eraserhead on TV at
yeah, yeah,
1977.
it's gonna be absolutely
In
nuts because it was
1977, it's coming on TV. It's like something transmitted from the
yeah,
future.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, but I
Right.
think maybe I don't know. This is I'm a cynic. Fair. I don't think I need to like say this more openly, but I feel like I'm thinking if we cynics, people who've seen some stuff, can only find these new experiences and voices and more you know not even the art house, because I think what you're talking about I think is more indie art house. I guess once you go one step further, it's indie independent, that bracket where it's almost like approaching sort of free form. What you said totally clicks with me. There's a film which like two films actually now that you've said that I keep on that I'm thinking about because they also link somewhat to Lynch. One of them definitely links to Lynch, but the second one less so. But what you're talking about, images and just the visceral nature of images. Sometimes you can just the original sort of force of them. There's this film called Leviathan by Harvard Sensory Lab people. There's two filmmakers who made a bunch of projects. Leviathan is the only project of theirs I've liked. Whatever else I've watched, I've not liked. But Leviathan to me was like, wow, like, you've put cameras inside fishing nets and like it was basically kind of capturing the experience of commercial fishing industry and how violent it is. It almost like elevates it to a mythic level of fear and horror and sort of paranoia. So that was one of the films I was thinking about in this terms, and the other one was animation film, stop motion animation, which Chris is like scared by in any case. It's called The Wolf House, which is a sort of psychological depiction of cult deprogramming. And because it is stop motion, the frames are consistently
What's the name
changing.
of the film?
The Wolf House, La Casa
Okay.
Lobo, is the Chile. It's a Chilean film, and I don't know if you've seen Beau is Afraid by Ari Aster. Um, Not a fan, but that has a particular section with performance art and stop motion, which is directed by the filmmakers who made Wolf House. So there's that connection. And to be like, I don't know, I think this for me this is like a very good segue to Eraserhead. But if you want to say anything more, please do, both of you, because Beau is Afraid particularly has a moment with a penis creature, which I think is rubbish, and then I can sort of segue into Eraserhead because there's a lot of penises and sperms and everything there also. So anything else you want to say, please go ahead. But yeah, what you were saying about the originality. Do you not think, Devasi, we live in an era now where it is all postmodern, not even postmodern. It's basically like,
I think one of the things that really destroyed creativity for my generation
hmm,
and your generation, and we are not
hmm,
that far apart, but
yes,
Chris is quite younger. I
yes,
think one thing that really ruined it for us was the flattening effect of the internet, where
hmm,
it flattens time.
hmm,
Like time used to be
yeah,
vertical,
yeah,
20s, 30s. I mean, again, like there is a music journalist called Simon Reynolds.
hmm,
I think he's in his 60s now,
hmm,
and he has a book called Retromania, like
hmm.
how music in the contemporary world is obsessed with the recent past,
Oh God, yeah,
right?
yeah,
And if you look at uh, uh, popular music of the last American popular music of the last 15 years,
yeah,
it's all rehashing synth pop,
hmm,
or like so many of the top music artists, Saint Vincent
hmm,
and Arctic Monkeys, they all have an 80s synth pop influenced album.
yeah.
It's
I think
on and
80s are the one of the most referenced in general, even in film,
yes,
right?
and
So yeah,
everybody is weirdly stuck in the 80s.
hmm,
And now they're doing country rehash albums. Like Beyonce had a country album.
yeah,
And even in like cinema
hmm,
and TV, I mean, we have had so many 80s that Steven Spielberg ET
yeah,
sort of referencing for so long.
yeah,
So what the internet has done is internet has suddenly is delivering into our computers like a market, like a
yeah,
postmodern bazaar of images and sounds to collect from and remix
yeah,
constantly. And the
yeah. No, go ahead. Sorry.
only way you can only way you can go forward or create anything original in
Hmm,
image or sound or art or whatever is when you are not aware of your past,
yeah,
when you are not aware of your baggage.
yeah,
You are constantly, right now, you are constantly, you have all these greats and all these errors and everything. This entire bazaar is sitting on your head and your shoulders.
yeah.
right?
Mm.
Of directors like the person who made Substance or
Yeah.
whatever.
Hmm.
So
Mm.
you are like picking up, template audio-visual syntax and
Yeah.
just keeping on remixing and creating
Mm.
cinema. I
Yeah.
mean, you can't, a Cronenberg or a Lynch is only possible when you are completely divorced from that
Yeah.
baggage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I'm curious if you've not seen the Wolf House, I'd really recommend it. I think that is one of the more
I just checked it out. I will
yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, I think it's one of the more artistic achievements of how many ever, like just the art stuff in that is fascinating. Anyways, but yeah, the
Al-
remix.
Also, I genuinely feel that right now, as opposed to the decade which celebrated Lynch or Cronenberg,
Yeah.
I feel
Mm.
right now such films are still getting made. Like I was
Mm.
complaining about the lack of originality or
Yeah.
whatever, like lack of genuinely unsettling voices.
Hmm.
Unsettling purely because they are just weird and left of center. Like
Sure.
just suddenly attacking you with something crazy. They're
Yeah.
still getting made, but I don't think they're celebrated.
Sure.
As opposed,
Mm.
like in the critical community, I
Hmm.
think the film critical community at large globally,
Hmm.
they celebrate something which they can still recognize.
That's very
But
true.
some
It's a great
but
point. Yeah.
something like an Eraserhead of 2020, I don't know where it is. It
But
is
I
in this
feel,
film, the Wolf
yeah, but
House.
I feel Devarsi, this is like it's the whole sort of general adage. And I'm sorry, Chris, we are sounding a lot like, grumpy old people, I think. I don't know, like that's
No,
how,
no,
I
I.
mean, there
I
is a
always feel
lot
like.
to be grumpy about. Paul Schrader in an interview. Paul Schrader was getting interviewed. He's in his, what, 78 or something. He was getting
80s,
interviewed
no?
by, eh, he's not 80 yet. He
80s,
was
not
getting
80s?
interviewed by
Mm.
somebody in their 20s.
Yeah.
Mm.
And he told the interviewer that if I was in my 20s right now,
Yeah.
I'd be very pissed off.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
very.
absolutely.
He was
Yeah.
talking about the state of the world at large, not
Yeah, yeah,
just
I mean,
cinema.
you
Mm.
could see his films, I
It
think,
is
and you will get
it,
an
it is a
idea.
natural state of being to be grumpy to.
No, no, that's true. I
Mm.
don't disagree. It's just, it's one of those things which I've been grumpy so much on this podcast that I have to now
No, but sir,
self-reference it.
I'm known for being the grumpy young person on this podcast. You're saying this as if that
Yeah, but
इसका
it's
ठेका आपने लेकर
no,
रखा
no, I
लेके रखा
know. No,
है.
but I think it's just, it's that whole thing, right? It's that mentality also because times are so pessimistic. You shouldn't be, who likes to watch pessimistic art and who likes to listen about bad things when bad things are happening? I'm like, I do.
No, but I
So,
disagree
yeah,
in a slight sense because you're
mm,
talking about this postmodernist and all of that, but that is a certain inflection of cynicism of unimaginable amounts. And I think that cynicism also has an issue because then it sort of gets into this sort of self-reflective loop where you're then not able to break out of it. I think
sure.
there is a certain lack of a naive optimism, which I know you
Oh,
disagree with
which,
me
yeah,
on.
yeah. Oh, God, please don't bring it up again. Okay, yeah, bring it
I
up.
am not going to, but
Bring it up, bring it up. It's fine.
genuinely
No, no, it's
think.
good. Yeah, we need examples. So, you know.
No, but I will get like jute thrown at me all over again.
You
But we
can
were having
mention,
a
so no,
discussion.
no, I'm going to mention it. What Chris is referencing to here is Megalopolis by Francis Ford
Francis Ford
Coppola,
Coppola.
which, if you want
So
to
a couple of
listen to
episodes
him
ago.
and Aryan rally for and against The Brutalist, you can in our other episode. But yes, where I
Yeah.
was
So
stone faced, just, contrast also, I'm just saying.
shaking his head vigorously, but
Yeah. Anyways, yeah.
no, but that's what I'm saying, right? I think there is a certain naive optimism that is necessary to be able to rise above all because again what Devarsi is talking about, it's a difference between a cinema made in during lack versus during excess. Like
Mm.
at the time there is a certain lack of imagery, therefore imagery is made to fulfill that void. Now it's just so much image, you don't know what to make but what is
What
already there in a
what you're
sense.
saying sounds a lot like
Hmm.
Godard. You could watch recent Godard and let me know what you think about. Again, I am the sort of person who understands where Godard comes from, but I don't like his cinema that much. So it's that sort of stuff. But what Devarsi is saying, Godard was still making as this proliferation of
Hmm.
images, voices, and his films are essentially overflowing with everything. So, if you want,
Hmm.
so I think what you can do is weaponize that excess in a way which then becomes something more experimental. But I think
Hmm.
what people are more caught up in doing is pastiching and sort of, just repurposing, and then because yeah, he's right. I mean, I know that you like Substance, you don't love it, but there's other people who love it on our podcast. But it's one of those things where it's like it is very overtly like there is nothing original in it. When I watched it, I was like, why are people so on the back of like Darren Aronofsky when he does this sort of thing? Like they keep on like pummeling him when he makes this sort of aggressive cinema. Substance is literally the same, and it's like a pastiche of so many other things as Devarsi said. So I don't know. It's a weird loop, I suppose. But I think
Yeah.
the reason we are bringing it up is because the filmmaker we are talking about has is nothing to do with sort of that. And when he has taken inspiration, he's created, of course, his own very own worlds from it, and which I think is the central argument for his. And Eraserhead, I don't even know if there are like filmic inspirations that many, because I think later on when we get to it, we'll consistently refer films like Sunset Boulevard and uh, Wizard of Oz. Even there is a bit of Wizard of Oz here, I would argue, but apart from that, there's no like in Eraserhead, there doesn't feel like there's much um, cinematic inspiration. It just feels like this guttural, primal sort of everything bursting out of your. It's the first film. It's like someone's first film, and it feels like they've bared their soul out to you. And in this case, he's bared his soul out in a way which doesn't feel like a chaotic mess, but it's a genuinely, visceral experience more I can't again, it's a lot of this our discussions on Lynch might be us repeating words and sort of failing to talk about his work, because I think his work can have that sort of
I
effect.
think just to
Yep.
interrupt, I think one of the great things, and this is in the book Room to
Yep.
Dream. I think one of the great things that I read in that book, and
Hmm.
it is in the chapter on Eraserhead,
Yep. Spike,
that
is
David
it,
Lynch,
or is it called Spike?
uh, I'll tell you which chapter it is. It is, yeah, it is the Spike chapter.
Spike, right? Okay.
तो उसमें this David Lynch has said that he did not think
Hmm.
Eraserhead, he felt
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And that's a huge kind of statement, because everybody is trying, or most filmmakers, producers, creators, studios, they are trying to think films
Yeah.
now. And they're being encouraged to,
I don't even think they're thinking
they're
films at this point. I think they're thinking just profit margins. So yeah.
exactly, so it is a
Yeah.
kind of thinking, it's kind of reverse engineering
Yeah.
cinema,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's what I was talking about. It's kind of, this film has to marry this film,
Yeah.
and it has to have the flavor of that film, and it
Yeah.
has to appeal to this market. This is how
Mm.
they're coming up with cinema, right?
Yeah.
And instead
Absolutely.
of just feeling things,
Yeah. Feeling is
uh,
overrated in today's generation. Am I right, Chris? Is that your motto? Sorry,
Are we doing this, please?
I'm asking.
Leave me alone.
I'm asking. Is the Gen Z motto
Don't.
not to feel? No, but no, I'm just because I've seen my cousins sort of they're illuminating things. Just sometimes people think they're not saying illuminating things, but they do. I remember one of the times I asked my cousin, why do you not want to watch something which is scary, or why do you not want to watch something which is new or whatever? Because they don't want to feel sad, because they don't want to feel it's the surprise, or the newness is something which is becoming scary, which is
Yeah.
sad. I think like this is a general audience take, not a cinephilia take, but general audiences are the people who get who pay the money, which then sort of
Yeah.
finances your big budget films, which then finance your other films. So it's a loop in that sense. So, you get different anyways.
No, but that's definitely true. Like I've had multiple, like my like social circles are very much divided into the cinephile circle versus the non like casual cinema watchers. And for them, all they want is either feel good cinema or something like masala, which they can just sort of the very typical idea of turn your
पॉपकॉर्न
brain off,
खा
enjoy
खाना है
this.
ना जाके बेसिकली वो
Essentially.
which is not, I'm not
yeah,
taking
but
a
that
dig,
was
I'm
the
just meaning,
situation
yeah.
all along, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Regardless of generation.
I think it's
I
just
think
ki wo,
the
sorry, go
difference
ahead,
is
Devarsi,
back
sir.
then when we were kids,
Hmm.
Hmm.
back then we did not have like control over what we could watch.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So while moving from one channel to another, not that
Hmm.
Eraserhead was shown on our TV, but at least something as strange as The Matrix could suddenly hit you on
Yeah.
HBO,
Hmm.
Hmm.
right? But
Yeah.
right now, you can control that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have the control on my streamer to avoid
Yeah.
anything that feels foreign, which
Yeah.
is, I think, a problem.
Which is so weird considering it's the whole that you have more access to foreign stuff, but you are more
Mm.
reticent to sort of watch it, which I think is like really weird. Like,
Yeah.
streaming could have been more of a gateway into stuff, but it's sort of become the opposite. It sort of restricted people into their own little, uh,
No,
you
it's
know,
it's also a sense of decision paralysis, right? Like when
yeah,
you are given more, you then know less what to watch. Like Devarsi said, in a lot of ways, we have watched a lot because we had TV. So our thing was जो चल रहा है वही देखने का. So
yeah,
the variety that you got there, you watch whatever because you were bored and you didn't have anything else to do.
yeah.
Now you got everything. So like he said, you can curate whatever you want, whatever small
And
bubble.
the AI curates it for you. Whatever, it's the whole you
Absolutely.
like, you will see more of that rather than, newer stuff. So,
Yeah.
congratulations to everyone who watched Nadanya, including us. And Devarsi also watched it. And was, all of us are to blame here.
I watched the first 37
Oh,
minutes of
you
Nala.
shut it off. Good. So
This is
yes,
also a like nadan post-traumatic nadania stress disorder support group.
that every episode from now will be. I think this whole year will need to, we'll need to take that junk out of our head. Anyways, to erase ahead. I think we can erase that thing. I suppose. Sorry, bad one. But erase ahead. Does anyone want to intro it, or do you want to rely on my stupid intro? I have a very so I'll just list the cast, crew, and everything, and then I have plot which I've taken from IMDb, and then I have my description of the plot, which is very bad. But I will the director. This is one of those auteur projects in many senses. It's directed by, written by, edited by, and partially composed, sound designed by David Lynch, produced by David Lynch also by a company is called Absurdia, I think, or Absurda, one of those things. I forgot the name. But yes, so he's sort of the person behind it all. It took him what 5 years to make it or something at the AFI. Chris has done all this homework, so I will ask him to fill in all this. First, let me
Yes.
just rattle off the title, crew title name. So, writer, director, editor, of course, all this is there. Then one of the main sound designers is Alan Splett, who's a big
Hmm.
thing because this film is one of the most remarkable sound designs, I think, in general. I know people talk so much about, IMAX systems and everything. Now, I was like, if there's one movie I would want to go and watch in a cinema, it would be
Hmm.
Eraserhead. I don't really care about anything else James Cameron is making right now. Like, I would rather happily just go and watch Eraserhead. But anyways, DOPs, there were two DOPs because of budgetary constraints and difficulties. Herbert Cardwell and Frederick Elms. Frederick Elms came later on after Cardwell left. It stars Jack Nance, titled in the film or credited as John Nance. I don't know why, but like that's what he was known as in that for some odd reason. He's our main protagonist who plays somewhat of a David Lynch surrogate in this film. Then there's Charlotte Stewart as Mary X. She's the wife slash girlfriend of Henry, the main character. Then I love the other cast members and their crew titles though. Judith Anna Roberts as beautiful girl across the hall. Laurel Near as lady in the radiator, and Jack Fisk as the man in the planet. So Jack Fisk again. He'll be coming back and back again and again in a lot of these films we discuss. But yes, so these are the crew sort of descriptions. Plot: Henry Spencer tries to this is IMDb. Henry Spencer
Hmm.
tries to survive his industrial environment, his angry girlfriend, and the unbearable screams of his newborn mutant child. It's pretty
Hmm.
succinct, and I have written young men really need to use condoms. So that's about it. And then now you can take over, Chris, please.
Yeah, so this was when Lynch was studying at AFI, and he was apparently not very happy with the courses there, but he was offered a chance to
He started
produce.
with,
Uh,
sorry, I just need to mention this, with my favorite, other favorite, Terrence Malick. And I think Devarsi, you are a Paul Schrader fan, right? If I'm not wrong.
Yeah, I'm a
Yeah.
huge Paul
Okay.
Schrader fan.
So Paul Schrader and Terrence Malick both were there in the same year, I think, as Lynch at EFI. Yeah.
Yeah, so he was given the chance to produce a script of his. Originally, he was going to produce a film called Garden Back based on one of his
Mhm.
paintings, but they weren't really happy with it. So he ended up, offering up Eraserhead, which is based apparently on a daydream he had of a boy selling a head to a pencil factory.
Hmm.
And that then he's ended up staying at AFI and using the location as many of the sets for the film. And it was originally he turned it like a 21-page script, so they thought that the film would be about 20 minutes long, but David
Oh,
Lynch, being
God.
David Lynch, ended up being a 5-year long project where they constantly kept running out of money. So Fisk and his wife were
Sissy
people
Spacek,
who,
I didn't know she was his wife. She's a big actress, actually, so or
yeah.
was at least in the 70s, and is still one of the radiant presences in any movie she appears in. So yes.
Yeah. So they kept the project afloat for most of the time, and like you said, Alan Splet for the sound. And the fun fact about the film is that no one actually knows what the prop for the child or whatever is, because
It's called
apparently he had
Spike.
blind.
That's why the chapter
Yeah,
in
it's
the book
called
is
Spike.
titled
Yeah.
Spike. Yeah.
And the apparently the projectionist was blindfolded to make sure that no one knows how Lynch managed to do that. There's a lot of theories about how he got
I
it
am
through.
so glad he kept it a secret, a mystery, because no one else deserves to have, like, that sort of. I'm sure, anyways, nowadays, no one will be able to, because pretty sure some cruelty was done to some animal in this. It
Absolutely.
didn't abide by the rules.
Lot of
So
ethical
yeah, yeah, yeah.
constraints
You
were
will have
flouted here.
you'll have people coming in with their
Hot
whatever.
takes.
Not hot takes. They'll just ban it. Anyways, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I sorry. Just one thing else to mention. It was made on a
Yes.
budget of $100,000. This film was made on a budget of hundred. This is one of the best looking films, I think. And if someone can make a film like this on $100,000, I think it's a testament to
And
and
over
sound.
such a long time, because
Yeah.
also because apparently there's Lynch says an anecdote that there's a shot of Nance opening a door, and apparently the scene inside the room was shot about a year
A year
later.
after. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But you would never imagine something like that because of how sort of coherent the film is.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean that's all the trivia stuff into it. This is not an what Eraser had explained episode. I think it's very much a what did we
I,
feel
I, I
about
just checked.
Eraserhead?
I just checked that right now, 100,000 is 85 lakhs.
I mean at that time, yeah, and making but
Hmm.
85 लाख से बनती है Eraserhead and then
you
40
get
CR से नादानिया.
I mean, that's the yeah. I mean, what can anyone say? I think is the thing you can say. Anyways, yeah. I mean, it's just sheer artistry though. Like you see the film and you're just like, I think once Lynch had passed away, whenever he has passed away this year, I watched the opening 15 minutes of the film and I was like, Jesus Christ! Like imagine coming out with those 15 minutes as the first 15 minutes of your career in like a feature film, and I'm just like, this is and I couldn't watch it after that just because I was like, I wasn't overwhelmed as such, but I was more just like how powerful are those opening? Because there's like a line of or two, three lines of dialogue in that, which I thought was like insane. How much he relied on whatever the medium and everything, which sort of makes sense because he was more of a musician and painter, so images and audio were the more central parts to him as opposed to dialogue. But yeah, it's just fascinating film. But yeah, this is not going to be a Eraserhead explained. I think we all will have probably. Again, I think the film is fairly clear about what it is about. We can, of course, have different things to talk about. There are different elements to pick apart. But yeah, we are going to go into full spoilers, of course. It's 1977. It's 100 and, no, it's not 100. It's 89 minutes long. So please watch it, especially if you're into horror. art house horror, body horror even. I think those, it sort of ticks both those boxes. Psychological horror, definitely psychosexual horror, whatever. Yeah, like it is very much overtly almost a horror film. This is probably his most overt horror film, because other films will have more other things to them. But who should I begin with? Devarsi, you want to go first? Chris, you want to go first? Chris will go
Uh,
first. He's put his hand.
Okay.
Oh, I thought you
I
were
was
doing
I was
this.
pointing to Devarsi. I was saying, let's let our guest go
So,
first.
but that's right to you, not left. Left,
Yeah,
मैं
it's for me. It's on the other side. It's flipped
Okay,
on
Devarsi, you
mine.
go first. That's fine.
how do I begin? What do I say?
That I don't know. That is what you. No,
That
I
is
mean,
why I said I'm not doing it.
okay. I mean, I can begin if you. So I guess let me just. There's another quote. Again, this is essentially we should be like the PR for all this affair of Room to Dream. Essentially, I'm choosing like quotes left and right from this. I'll choose this quote because I think it'll help us sort of dive deep into years ahead from that point. This is again in the first paragraph of the memoir itself, which is. We live in a realm of opposites, a place where good and evil, spirit and matter, faith and reason, innocent love and carnal lust exist side by side in an uneasy truce. Lynch's work resides in the complicated zone where the beautiful and the damned collide. And I think that's I mean, it's a wonderfully apt description, I think, for all of his work. And I think even though Eraserhead is, I think, the one of his works which is really steeped in darkness, like this is the, in the sense that it's feels like it's much more filled with blacks as opposed to whites, because in the sense of the color of the film, it is very uh, dark throughout the film, and it's very effectively done, moodily. And I just recently saw a film in which the darkness was so much that I couldn't see people's faces, and I was annoyed because it's like, you need to light a scene in which you can at least see people's faces or whatever. Like it should be a quality of your film, not a drawback, essentially. And I think in Eraserhead, that's definitely a case. I mean, I jokingly said it's about, men, young men should really wear condoms, which I think maybe we can begin from that sort of thematic angle where it's about you know this whole idea of sexual anxiety, sexual excitement. I think it's the because it's dualities, as it was written in the book memoir also. I think, to me at least, and you guys can chip in, of course, it's about somewhere between sexual anxiety and excitement. It's
You
about
know, I
someone.
just, I was just, while you were picking up this quote from the book,
Yeah,
and you asked me and Chris to get into discussing Eraserhead,
yeah,
I was just thinking, what the hell do I say? What the hell do I say? And I just remembered something recently.
yeah.
I was at a wedding
Okay.
and I was hating. I was just hating it. You know, like when you
Oh,
were in your
hating
early
weddings.
30s.
That's like a
No, no, I'll
that's
tell you
my
why.
memo. No, that's
Arey,
my memo. It's fine. Go ahead.
when you
You
were at
hate social interactions in
That's
general.
true.
You don't
it's
have to
not
generalize it to weddings.
Sorry.
for me it was not about the social interaction,
Sure.
but it was like when you were in your late 20s and early 30s, trust me, if you're unmarried, you will hate weddings. Because of the yeah, anyway. So I was
Yeah.
hating it and I was just thinking in my head
Mm,
that the anxiety and anguish that I'm
mm,
feeling right now, that I walked away from the wedding and it was happening in a huge apartment complex,
mhm,
like the super complexes with the
mhm,
swimming pool and the big ground and all of that. Uske andar
mhm,
ho raha. So I kind of walked out of the wedding and
mhm,
I was just roaming around in the darkness and just
mhm.
being by myself, brooding.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking that the anxiety that I'm feeling, all the thoughts, whatever personal thoughts that I have, all
Mhm,
of this could be a horror.
mhm,
Then I told my friend that I was texting my friend that I'm hating this fuck all with that. And then I'm like, this could be a horror film. I wrote to
mhm.
my friend. My friend is like, it's definitely not that bad. I'm like,
Yeah.
I know it's not that bad, but
Yeah.
I could extrapolate this, exaggerate this feeling and
Yeah.
turn it into a horror film.
Mhm. Yeah.
So this idea now, getting back to Eraserhead, this idea that any anxiety or any kind of feeling of being unnerved by in your real life
Mm,
could be kind of exaggerated and turned into could be meditated upon and turned into a horror film. This
Yeah.
entered my head because of Eraser.
Yeah.
Because up until then, my idea of horror was, oh, there is going to be a zombie,
Yeah.
there is going to be somebody possessed, there
Mm.
is going to be a werewolf, whatever.
Yeah, yeah, creature or whatever,
It
some
has to be
external thing.
encapsulated in an external
Yeah.
entity,
Hmm.
not the world of the story itself.
Yeah.
Right? कि
Yeah.
मुझे exam results or whatever से डर
Yeah.
है something.
Mm.
Can that itself be horror?
Mm.
So this idea came to me from Eraserhead that
Yeah.
anything can be a horror film,
Yeah.
just like anything can be a comedy. If
Yeah.
this story of Eraserhead,
Mm.
it has a story and it does have a story. To be
Yeah,
honest,
yeah,
it
absolutely.
could
Yeah.
it could easily be a comedy film, and actually, this story
There
has
are
given us more comedies than anything else.
there are really, I think, I mean, again,
There was
I think,
single guy afraid to commit, single guy afraid
yeah,
to be a father.
yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, I'm bringing up another weird comparison. I'm bringing
Go
up
ahead.
Sajid Khan.
Absolutely, we are all for that.
Sajid
That's
Khan, Sajid
okay.
Khan
That I
made
did not expect.
Sajid Khan
Yes.
made Hey Baby. What
I
is
thought
Hey
you were
Baby
saying Hum
about?
Shekels. I was like, okay.
What is Hey
Yeah.
Baby about? Men who don't want to
Parental
be dad.
anxiety. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Male
वही तो
parental
है
anxiety. Yeah,
Eraserhead.
exactly.
This is how
You
Yeah.
you
are
are
you?
going to sell it to an Akshay Kumar audience.
क्या तू क्यों करता उल्टे सीधे काम हैं? तेरे पिछवाड़े से निकला Disgusting. It's her. It's her. Oh God. जल्दी साफ कर. You must be joking. You must be joking.
Just to summarize what I was saying, like anything can be any genre.
Yeah.
Anything can be anything. Like
Yeah.
that is the joy of Cronenberg, or I don't know why I'm bringing Cronenberg again.
No. I think it's up.
But
Body
that
horror
is
is
the
definitely a big thing, right?
seeing a
So,
Cronenberg or a Lynch or whatever. Like that thing I was saying in the beginning. That this can be cinema.
Hmm.
This can be horror. This can be cinema. This can be a story. This is how you can make a film. That is quite kind of mind blowing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's also just about the conception of it. Like, I think it's this whole idea that, as you said, like, of course you can make, we discussed this last episode also, weirdly enough, where we said that you can make a film about anything you want. There's no problem with that. It's about how you have to convince us into making that anything believable. Believable not in a realistic sense, but in a I will buy into your world sense. Whatever that world is, that world can be as alien and dystopic and, like, paralyzingly. I don't. It's a weird thing. Maybe I'll differ on one point and maybe I won't. But for me, the Eraserhead world is not, I guess, as scary as it is for some people in terms of its vibe. Like, to me, there's a ASMR quality to its sound design, or maybe it's sort of now become that, where I'm just like, this is the industrial and it's amazing because it's like so prevalent in the whole film, like the industrial noise, the clanging and clicking and, like, rustling of metals and pipes and radiators, of course, and everything. And I think there's this whole thing where, to me, that's why the baby becomes an even more shrieking and sort of, like, frightening presence, because he disturbs the quote unquote peace of that like, that dystopian industrial land also, because his shrieks are not ASMR. They are like your jump in, if you're going to the whole horror tract, they are the quote unquote jump scares, or like the wailing is the jump scare. It's like, if he's, because, see, clearly it's intended to be that the industrial landscape itself in the film is inspired a lot by his experiences in Philadelphia, right? That was the whole thing, that he lived in Philadelphia for a while. The Philadelphia at that point in time was an absolute shithole. Like, I think it was like it had like it. I think I was reading a little bit where it was defined like the institute where he was studying was almost like a demilitarized zone, like a center in the middle of what otherwise was an absolutely horrible crime filled, like, it's essentially, and just linking to his other films, it's the underworld where of a Blue Velvet. It's the reality of Mulholland Drive. It's that world in Eraserhead, that's the prevalent one. The overlit white, light is the warmth essentially given is the radiator. Inside the radiator is the whatever picket fences and all that sort of, it's that sort of equation. And I think it's just the evocation. I can't, we can't, I don't think I can escape the evocation of the word evocation because it is the word which comes to my mind whenever I'm talking about this. It's just, I can't remember the last time I've felt, like you just are transported to another world and you're just like thinking how he's managed to do it from frame one to frame the last. Like it's just extraordinary how he can take you into his world. So yeah, I mean, I've sort of talked out in a roundabout way, but Chris, you can also fill in it with more
Yeah, no, I think
substance. Have you used evoked that
there's
word?
no substance here. Don't
I'm
worry.
really waiting for
No,
Chris to bring in Deleuze. I want to see where
Oh
it
God.
I
goes.
am not talking about Deleuze.
Now that
I
he's been
thought I would.
evoked, Chris.
No, I'm not doing.
Okay.
I'm going to talk about Derrida. I'm not going to talk about Deleuze. I was what I was thinking about is the film is so expansive, and I'll tell why I was thinking about Deleuze, but it's so expansive in everything that it's doing that I was looking at how other people are thinking about the film, and I
Hmm.
saw like two. I was seeing two podcasts, and they were right back to back each other, and
You
one
see
was
other podcasts
about.
than our podcast?
No, I did it just for this. Don't mind.
Okay.
My loyalties are
Sorry.
in the right place.
I'm
No,
kidding.
so no, so one was looking at it from a very traditional psychoanalytic lens,
Yeah.
and the other was reading it from Deleuze and Guattari's Anti-Oedipus, which is a critique of psychoanalysis. So I'm like, there's just that like breadth of interpretations that something like Lynch's work can evoke, and especially I
Now
find
that
it.
you've said this, what all does this mean? What
I'm
you've
not
just
going to
said.
explain any of it. I will send you the links to the podcast. You can
Okay.
listen to people who understand Nietzsche and Freud, which I still don't. You can go and listen to that there. But what I wanted to talk about is Derrida, and I think that's so I recently got the opportunity to attend a lecture by a very famous Derridian philosopher,
Mhm.
and she was talking about Derrida's work on what is called Truth in Painting, one of his pieces,
Mhm.
and I find it quite interesting that Lynch comes from painting, but Derrida essentially says that painting and language. A lot of people try to say that painting has a grammar or that it's like a language. Derrida sort of rejects that in saying that they are all different sort of systems of meaning and signs and symbols, and that to use one to articulate the other will never be possible in a sense
Mm.
that just because these two things do such different things, and I think that
Mm.
painting aspect can be extended to film as well, that film and painting is all about a certain evocation, like
Mhm.
Dhruv said, but it's an experience of expansion,
Mhm.
whereas language and verbal language as we are doing is abstraction. It's trying to pinpoint, it's trying to it's that explained ending explained
I mean,
practice.
yes. Yeah.
So, to try even to articulate verbally
Mm.
what is seen in Lynch's work is in Eraserhead, I think in particular of all the films of
Mhm.
his I've seen, is truly, it feels almost like a futile effort, but like that is
Yeah.
what makes you want to do it so much
Mm.
more. And I find it rather interesting that you talk about it as a dude bro film, because as someone who's neither cisgender nor heterosexual,
Mhm.
I'm still, I think there is a interesting way that it's still able to resonate so strongly. Like obviously it's very clear, or at least clear enough in what it's trying to say, but there is still a certain emotional resonance which isn't restricted to that experience that
I
I
think
find
I
very
was thinking
fascinating.
about it a little bit this time around because I know I referred to the baby, and I don't know if the film refers it to it as a him, but there is a sense of that. And I think the reason I referred it to a him is because it is sperm shaped to me, the baby, and penis shaped, whatever. There's a lot of that in Eraserhead. There's the baby itself. Then there's these two. I want to mention this. There's these two props which I don't know last time when I've seen them this aligned with Henry, but there's like a poster of the nuclear explosion, which that mushroom cloud, which again looks like a penis and or whatever, a sperm. And there's that the plant with which has like this one root which is erect and it is like withering a little bit. And I was like, why has he chosen to like frame, like a lot of the shots in the film have those things along with Henry in the frame? And I was like, I'm sure there has it has something to do with, other implications, because the whole film is so much about his sexual excitement slash anxiety, that those symbols also sort of make their way through. And if anyone has seen Twin Peaks: The Return, that explosion will come in one of those episodes also. So it's one of those things which sort of multiplies and everything. But it's this whole idea to me that he he deploys these things very judiciously in the film. And I think, along with the sound design, and even Jack Nance, I think one of the, as Devarsi was saying, Eraserhead is one of the better or the best portrayal of what male anxiety is. Jack Nance is so meek in this film. He's so like cowardly. Like he's also, I think he has a short stature. I think that makes him even more powerless in the film whenever he's got this ability to look smaller by just like putting his shoulders up for some reason. And it's the hair. The hair makes his face look smaller. Which is the Havel's electroshock hair essentially. So I think, yeah, going with the ridiculous comparisons. So yes, one of those things. But yeah, go ahead. Other thoughts. I think it's best to talk about Eraserhead in more of a, combined. I don't know, at least like, it should not come across as which is like a straightforward thing. It should feel more dispersed, I suppose, in a way. But
Yeah, I think for me, what is I think also most fascinating about it is how I watched it, which is also just really funny.
oh
So
God, don't bring your friends up again. Sorry.
Dhruv has got a personal vendetta with my batchmates, but this was watched with a bunch of my PhD seniors and my classmates. But we watched this at university, and it was just an hour and a half of like every 5 minutes someone whispering what the fuck at the screen. And I have never felt more immersed in a film while also just experiencing what is going on around me. Because I think there's a moment for me, and especially I'm someone who's not very you used to not be very fond of horror. My
Mm-hmm.
interest in it comes very recently, but there's just these moments in the film. I think the one which I watched this time as well that just absolutely terrified the living hell out of me was there's a moment where he takes the child's temperature,
Oh God.
and
Yeah.
he sort of he thinks it's sick, and he sort of
Mm.
steps away, and then it cuts once and it's fine, and then it cuts again
Oh,
and
he's
it's
got that.
just
It's a jump scare. It
shriveled.
is. Yeah.
It's a proper jump scare,
Yeah.
and it's shriveled and pockmarked, and that viscerality of it
Yeah.
is unparalleled to me. Like I,
Yeah.
I was just like, because, and I think that is what the film is also, it's oral, but it's also so tactile, which is I think
Mm.
another thing that is so like even in the lady in the radiator like stepping on the spermatozoa
Stomping
or
on the, yeah.
stomping
That's
in the
I
You know,
think
Lady
that,
in the Radiator is
yeah.
a great name for a band.
I
Think
still
about
don't. So that's why I was asking Chris. But like, never understand why she has those puffy cheeks. Is there anything in your interpretations that probably pointed that out to you? I was just like,
no.
I just couldn't get a hang. Like, I don't need to like decode it or anything, but I was like,
Hmm.
an interesting choice. Like, why does she have,
Hmm.
why is she so imperfect in some senses?
Hmm.
It's one of those things. Because that's supposed to be his utopia. That's his
Hmm.
fake utopia because it happens on a stage. Again, Mulholland Drive comes into this. It's again all
Hmm.
sort of in that ways. But no. I think that scene sort of, and the one that follows sort of encapsulates the film for me, because it's about his desire for her to stomp on, well,
Hmm.
his sperms when he's dropping them left, right, and center from on top of the stage. And then it's
Hmm.
followed by his horrified reaction of taking these strings of sperm babies out of his wife's vagina. I think like that's
Hmm.
implied. And I think it's
Yeah.
just like the the contrast there, I think, is sort of
Yeah.
the
No, and then
thing.
he like throws them against the wall, and there's
Well,
this
well,
squelching, really.
yeah. So yeah, it's that that idea of just being in that uncomfortable space, and it's a hellish landscape, which
Hmm.
and then the radiator is the heaven, whatever it means. But yeah, I mean, again, if you're looking for a decoding sort of thingy, then maybe I won't decode it, but I might do a post after we do our
Hmm.
episode, and maybe it's because it's easier to pinpoint things out there as opposed to in a discussion like this.
Yeah.
But if there are any other thoughts on this, go ahead. I mean, we've not talked about the family dinner scene, which I think is hilarious.
Oh.
Hilarious in like an uncomfortable way, of course. So
Yeah, I
this,
mean,
I'll have to
in
leave
no,
for dinner in a bit.
yeah, no issues. We
Uh,
are wrapping up in any
but before
case.
that, I
But
want to
hmm,
talk about something that Chris said about
hmm,
the Derrida
yeah,
essay
hmm,
or book of essays about how painting and cinema, these are different language systems altogether, and to
hmm,
yeah,
try to explain one language system by the rules of another language system is quite
hmm,
difficult.
hmm,
I just want to say that it's very interesting that Lynch, see the thing, reason Lynch is Lynch and
hmm,
he
hmm,
has made the films he has made is because he's a painter.
hmm,
hmm,
And I have noticed that whenever some individual totally immersed in a particular language system, as Derrida
hmm,
says,
hmm,
hmm,
suddenly moves into another language system
hmm,
hmm,
and does not bother to trap themselves with the rules of the new language system,
yeah,
they always end up with something really amazing and out there. One
yeah,
example is obviously David Lynch,
yeah,
who comes from painting. Another example, and I don't know if you guys have seen this
hmm.
film, is so there is a French New Wave filmmaker called, I can't pronounce French correctly,
No, no, go
but
ahead. We butcher pronunciations left, right, and center. It's okay.
so I think the pronunciation is Ale Resnais or Ale
Oh,
Rene.
okay, yes, yes. This is the
He's
guy who
he's
made
made
last year
last
in
year at
Marienbad.
Marienbad.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So he comes from documentaries, but for whatever reason, he would
Hmm.
work with French authors.
Sure. Marguerite Duras
And
and all those people, right?
correct,
Yeah, yeah,
correct.
yeah. Hmm.
And if you have seen his first three films, which are considered his best work, and
Night and
that is on
Fog.
that those are the only films that
Hmm.
I have seen.
Sure.
Last year at Marienbad is written by Ale Robe Grille. I can't
Yeah.
again pronounce it.
Yeah, that's
And
fine.
before that, he made Hiroshima Mon Amour. So
Yes.
they are written by authors, French
Yep.
authors,
hmm,
Yep.
who were writing in the modernist style, the
Sure.
style developed, not necessarily developed, but the progenitors of that style is T.S. Eliot,
hmm,
Yes.
Virginia Woolf,
Yep.
who were not going into the kind of social realism of the Russian novelists,
Sure.
but they
hmm,
were developing new systems or language
Sure.
systems
yeah,
to make sense of reality,
Yep.
hmm,
where you are moving from, just to make what I'm saying sound less esoteric.
Hmm.
hmm,
In the narrative, you are moving from your dreams to your thoughts to your memories,
Yep.
hmm,
to present day reality, and you are switching between all these things,
Yep.
hmm,
just like how stream of consciousness works.
Yeah.
Like
hmm,
I'm sitting here, I was thinking of that wedding, and I'm suddenly transported to the wedding, and
Yep.
I'm suddenly transported to a horrifying image of that wedding, into Eraserhead, back into this room,
hmm,
something like
Yep.
that,
Yeah.
coming
Yeah.
on text.
Hmm.
And that is exactly what those writers, Margaret Dura and Alan
Yep.
Robert Dille, were doing, and that was coming into Ale Resnais films.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
hmm,
when you watch Hiroshima Mon Amour and Last Year at Marienbad, they
Hmm.
they feel completely alien, just like
Yes.
hmm,
Eraserhead.
Yep.
And that is the reason is what I was saying. Like one is coming from painting to cinema,
Yep.
the other is coming from literature to
Literature.
cinema, and
There's a
that
yeah.
was very
I'm
interesting.
curious if you have you seen Marguerite Duras's work, Devarsi.
No, no,
Apart
I
from
haven't, but I
if
must.
you again if you have the appetite for, I have to mention this, extremely slow cinema, then
hmm,
Hmm.
she has made well, one of my favorites is India Song, which is about uh, basically the death of French colonialism in India, and it's
hmm,
basically what you see in Hiroshima Mon Amour pushed to aesthetic extremes. It's done in a way where it's a French woman's story, and what you hear. So the soundtrack and the what you see on screen, what you hear are totally different. There's a total disjunct between those two, and then it's basically whatever you see is like a comes whatever comes across is then like a collection of different memories being evoked whilst we are stuck inside this palace with this woman.
Oh,
So
that sounds fab.
hmm,
it does sound fab, but it is, I have to admit, like I have to
Uh,
sort of, it's a cautionary thing. It is
uh,
hmm,
extremely slow. So it's one of those things where it really will require patience. Like I think it's got. I've done some project on it, so it was like 52 shots in total or something like that. So it's one of those things. If you want all those details, I can pass them through. But it's a really in the way you are talking about sort of literary and the intersection of literature and cinema in many ways. That I think she pushes it to that extreme in that particular text and some of the other stuff which she's done which I've not seen.
Guys,
But
I'll have to leave,
no
and
issues, no issues. We'll
this
we'll we'll
was this
wrap
was a
this.
lot of fun, and
You
I'm
are. We
looking
had
forward to
great.
more of.
We have to. I think we'll put a cap on this episode as someone other than us introducing, like bringing in the most outlandish and exciting comparisons
Yes.
between some things. But yes, thank you so much, Devasi, for being here. You can let me know if, of course, you're interested in the other episodes. I'm more than happy to have you wherever
Super,
you're
super.
coming. It was a great
Bye,
time.
bye, Dhruv.
Bye.
Bye, Chris. Good
Bye.
night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye,
Good
bye.
night.
You want to talk about the dinner scene? I
We
think
can
there's a
talk
couple of
about the dinner
interesting things.
scene, which is
Yeah.
ironic. He went for dinners.
Mary usually does the carving, but maybe tonight you'll do it, Henry. All right with you? Of course. I'd be happy to. Do I just cut them up like regular chickens? Sure, just cut them up like regular chickens. You'll be all right in a minute.
I think for me, the dinner scene, more than like obviously there's the big things of it, but it's the small details that, like,
I
for
was
me,
about to say, yeah.
the thing that stood out to me the most is how he sits on the couch. There's just
Okay.
this way where he like leans, like you were saying about how he makes himself look smaller.
Shrink,
He
yeah,
puts one arm over the back of the couch, which
yeah.
makes his shoulders, and you see where he sits, the cushion's not there, so he's already sunk into this couch,
Sure.
and you can just see this palpable discomfort that is present in him that I thought was
Sure.
absolutely, and especially when that's interjected with her father coming in and this just and he shouts, "Look at my knees!"
Yes, yes. But
It's
you
just
know,
so much.
it's just, I think that was one of the few things I wanted to mention about
Hmm.
Lynch in general. It's the like the odd details which stand out. I mean, you're talking about this. My lasting, well, there's two lasting. One is the how overtly sexual the mother is. I was like, I forgot how much he like sort of. It's more like a projection of his state of mind in that sense, where she's sort of coming on to him. She's almost like licking him, and I was just like, I forgot that this
No, she's proper necking him in
like
that
yeah,
scene.
okay, and then there's this one moment, and this is like the sort of dialogue I find really funny with Lynch, where it's like where she asks him, "What do you do?" and he's like, "I used to do something," and she's like, and she says it, she replies and says something like, "Oh yes," or some like something very in a flat way, so it sounds very sarcastic. So I always like laugh at like those sort of comments where people say it in a very matter of fact way, but it feels very, very sarcastic.
Yeah,
And the
that's why I said it. It feels. I'm so sorry. It feels so unmediated, right?
yeah,
Like, in a normal narrative structure, you would have to imagine how to communicate these feelings through dialogue, through actual like things people would say.
yeah,
But through Lynch's abstraction, there is almost this counter effect that it becomes so much more viscerally emotively real. Like you
sure,
don't need the full conversation to just feel that. I think he says, yeah, she says he's very clever at printing, and she says, yeah, he does look like a clever boy or something
Yes, yes, yes,
like
something
that.
like that. Yeah, yeah,
And it just, you just need that one dialogue, that one look, that
yeah,
one tone, and the entire conversation is wrapped up in that
yeah,
one
yeah.
moment.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the other moment that stands out for me in that, and I again had forgotten. That's such a odd touch, but it's such a wonderfully memorable touch. Is the way she mixes the salad in when she goes into the kitchen. It is like that's the stuff which that's the sort of Lynch humor which I really like. Like that's because I don't have much affection for stand up comedy that much. I don't have my taste in comedy is very very selective, I suppose, when it comes to films. So when someone knows how to make me laugh, I automatically like respond to a lot of their work. So it's such a good moment where she just puts the salad bowl on the grandmother's lap, and she puts her hands around her and like is mixing it and like using her as a support system, and then she puts like a cigarette into her mouth and lights it up. It's just like, again, it's not the detail you need in that scene. It's just an idiosyncrasy which I like absolutely think makes the scene memorable, to me at least. And this is the same with the counter boy and the boss later on, where he's like, I think he enters the room, Jack Nance does, in the office, and the counter boy is like, sitting there, and then he like follows the boss, and he's like, be at the counter, something weird like that. Like it's very specific. It's not. It's not generic in any way. I mean, the film
Yeah.
doesn't have a generic bone in its body. Like it doesn't,
Yeah.
just the way it looks, it feels like it's
No,
like
I mean, even
flower.
to right in the middle of it, to have that entire stop motion section and all of
Yes,
that with the
where
with
where
that thing
his
he puts
head
in.
gets knocked off his, where his head
No,
becomes
even
an
it,
eraser.
no, I'm saying before that, that small thing that he puts inside, that he gets in the mail, that he puts inside that cupboard,
Mm-hmm.
that like again small sperm looking thing, and
Yes,
then it
yes,
expands in size and all of that. It's just to have that entire section
yeah.
right in the middle of the film, which again is one of those things that I have no idea. This is, I think, just before the section with the radiator, but like for
Mm-hmm.
all that to just happen in one go right in the middle of it, and
Mm.
just these images again of that sex scene as them sinking into
In the
the
pool
bed.
of, yeah, whatever it is, we don't get a glimpse of the water, but in the beginning there is imagery of the sperm mixing in that pool of water also, right? Like, so
Yeah.
there is something to do with, and but I don't know if he does actually have sex with her or not, the girl across the neighbor or not, because later when we see her with another man, it's more like, did he ever have sex with her or not? Anyways, it doesn't matter. The
Yeah.
idea is that there is that feeling of smallness, of impotence, uh, of not being able to consummate in some ways, even though he wants to, because he fears what will come out of it in many ways. There's also, because this time I was noticing, there's also like these wonderful mirroring images. I think there's, of course, the very memorable chicken legs moving, or like the chicken legs humping, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Because that sort of, there's this image, and of course I can't, this won't replicate when I speak about it, but there is an image in which he has his head, has hands against his head like this. Like this isn't like, I don't know how to express this, but essentially it feels like it's like two chicken legs sort of like
Yeah.
this, and then it's almost like, it's a similar sort of sexual position that he's sort of frustratedly sitting in. So
Yeah.
yeah, like this is just, again, it's one of
No,
those films.
it's no,
Go
it's
ahead.
imbibed. And so the other thing I was thinking of, and someone else pointed this out as well.
Hmm.
There's a scene where Mary is pulling the suitcase out from under the bed,
Yes,
and
yes,
it's
yes,
just this
yes.
wonderful like 10 seconds of this. She's like got this
Crying,
exasperated
because
face.
he's
She's
hysteric
crying.
most of the time. Yeah, yeah.
And it's just that the bed is just going
Shaking.
back and forth.
I'm like, what is she doing? Like, is she like, is this some sort of sex thing, or is this like supposed to be like?
Absolutely.
No, but and then it turns out it's like she's taking out the suitcase, and I'm like, this is so
Suitcase.
like pathetic, and like, because but it sort of plays into that whole idea, because for him, everything in some senses is about sex, but because everything is about sex, he also gets to then see the baby, and then see it, like, the desire essentially like resulting in something that makes him feel small and guilty, and he doesn't want to take the
Mm.
responsibility of it, which is why I always see the ending as almost, I don't know if this is supposed to be a positive ending. I didn't see it as
Mm.
that. I just thought he
Mm.
castrated himself or like killed himself. Like to me it was more because there's the radiator man who I think is
Mm.
uh the when he pushes the mechanical
Mm.
button, that's when the sperm sort of
Yeah.
zooms past. Oh my God, this sounds so weird when you're talking about it, but like, how do I explain this? Like, it's one of those.
Absolutely.
But no, like to me, all these images when you see it in the film, like if you're recounting them,
Mm.
or if you see them, I don't think there's any way in which you can recount them and them not coming across as extremely, extremely weird. But
Yeah.
in the world of the film, it feels very much off its place. Like it
Mm.
doesn't feel like it's alien because the world itself is
Yeah.
so alien. It is
And I
so,
think that that first 5 minutes does such a fantastic job, right?
yeah,
Because it
inside his
starts
head.
in the inside his head, and it starts in the the on the planet or the alien side
Yeah.
of it. That when the natural comes in, your natural is, or your regular is already tainted
Yeah,
by that. So then you're
because you enter inside a hole and then you get outside of that hole. There's all that
yeah.
stuff also. But yeah, but there is because you enter inside one and then when you come out, you see him looking back at like the industrial building he's just exited,
Mm.
Jack Nance, and then from there you see him walk. Like the amount of time the film takes in just showing him walk past this dystopian land, I was like, इतनी patience आजकल के
Mm.
ज़माने में कोई कौन देगा just for like establishing the setting. I was just like
Mm.
loving the amount of time it takes to just push you inside this world, and I was just like, this is heaven for me, even though it is
Mm.
literal hell for poor Mr. Lynch or slash poor Harvey, I guess. But
Mm.
is he poor? That's the other question. That's poor as in like he is probably financially not well to do. I mean, in the is he? It is, but I think this is, and maybe we'll end it on this if there's other things we don't have other things to say,
Mm.
but it's this idea of he is pathetic, but there
Mm.
is that element of almost like sympathy because the whole sexual desire slash sexual
Mm.
frustration is treated as something which is a not something which the film is doing to teach him a lesson or teach us a lesson.
Mm.
It's
Yeah.
very much a condition, like a human condition of
Yeah.
his in this world where he's like drawn to it in such a way but then repulsed by the outcome of it so
Yeah.
much that you do feel for him even though you might not
Yeah, I
experience
don't
it with him, but
Yeah, I don't think that resonance would come out without a certain empathy
yeah.
that the film affords to that character. Like, of course, he is pathetic, but it's also that he is not just because it's a product of his conditions, of the world that he's in, of whoever he may be. And, you know, that the film affords him that space of being able to understand why he is that way in a sense, maybe not literally, but there is that connection that is forged, which is what allows for it to resonate so universally, or however
And
you want
to
to
everyone, I
articulate
think
it.
that's the other thing, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
not just limited to like the whole bro thing is it's true in
Mm.
the sense that it's about a bro type character, though I feel he's too meek to be one of those
Mm.
bro type characters, but I guess Fight Club is also a bit like that, right? Anyways,
Yeah.
um but yeah, no, it's a very male film. It's male in the sense
Mm.
of it's one of his most exclusively male
Mm.
films, because otherwise all of his films are much more either the three films of his later on will be solely focused on women.
Mm.
Twin Peaks, Fire Walk with Me, Mulholland Drive, and Inland Empire are all
Mm.
entirely about women. Blue Velvet is more male, I think, than
Mm.
a female because it's entering a man's sort of psyche and
Mm.
darkness, his dark space in some ways. But
Mm.
yeah, this one more than any film, I think, is his personal exegesis of like whatever he was feeling in Philadelphia, probably, and like
Mm.
his anxieties with I think his firstborn Jennifer Lynch, who's
Mm.
directed a Hindi English film called His.
Mm.
So with Malika Sharawat and Irfan Khan. Now that's the tidbit of this episode, I suppose. But yeah, any other thoughts on Eraserhead, our
No,
first
that.
episode of David Lynch shall come to an
No, I
end?
think. No, I think in a sense that this is almost an anti-explained or explainer video. I think from our end, because again, like, to articulate is one thing, and you said definitively. I think, we could do this for, like, if we actually did this, we could do this for like another 3 hours. But then
Yeah.
also there is a sort of thing about, you don't want to be exhaustive about it. There's
No.
some of
Yeah.
it that, that remain, that mystery of it is part of its charm, and
Yeah.
you feel against, nitpicking and picking it apart moment by moment. It's about, very much about that experientiality of it, and those moments that stick out, that make you want to sort of
Yeah.
articulate it, I
I
think.
mean, again, if nothing else, and I mean, if nothing else we've said probably has convinced you to watch this, just watch it for that. Like, genuinely, if anyone's into like filmic atmosphere, people who know how to create cinematic worlds which sort of feel transportive, just watch this. Because I think this, if anything, if even if you don't like click with the narrative of it or anything or thematics of it, just the commitment to creating a world so richly substantive, like in just everything there in that world feels alive, which it's a complete counter to what we experienced in the last episode I think we did, where it was like nothing in that thing felt like it belonged to any it didn't feel like it had anyone's imprint on it. This is like the exact opposite of that. This is honestly the type of cinema a cinephile would kill for, like, honestly, in this economy especially. I'd be like, if anyone makes this film right now in this time, I'd be like, unko aap, give them whatever they want. Give them whatever they want, because uh, yeah, it's a singular piece of work, which there are many more to come from him, which I think is the other when in our discussions, which I think is
Yeah,
the joy of his filmography, a lot of it. So yeah, I
absolutely.
think that's about it. We waxed lyrical a lot. We found a way to still, I think, be rude about filmmaking today and trends today. But I think all of the points brought up by Devarsi, cynical as they are, I think were very much some things which were absolutely what it is going on. So I think it's not cynicism as much as just observation of trends. So sad as it is, let's hope there are other sort of ways in which we can find cinematic joy. Hopefully, you've also taken up some recommendations. Maybe we talked about in passing, just because you know. About different sorts of arts and artists and everything. So yeah, that's always a welcome thing. If people watch different things, expect, like, in episodes which even it's not about them or whatever. So yeah, but yeah, thank you so much for listening to our first edition of the David Lynch here. I think there will be about 10 to 12 of these. If my listing of the number of things that he's done feature film wise is correct, then there is 12. But then for Twin Peaks we won't just be doing one episode, because that's we will basically be essentially talking about 9 hours then, which we can't. Even we can't. That I'll put Varun. He will do it on his podcast. But no, we'll have one episode a month to 100% on from now till December. That's the plan. If we have any roadblocks there, I'll inform people. But yeah, otherwise, next film we will be discussing in the David Lynch thing is The Elephant Man. I think his one of his more conventional films, which I've never seen. So I'm looking forward to watch. I think it's one of the films which has won a bunch of Oscars, if I'm not wrong,
Okay.
for a lot of technical stuff, and I think for lead actor and supporting actor also, maybe. So look into that whenever we talk about next. Otherwise, what do we have planned? Live stream we have planned, I think. There's a lot of stuff
Yeah.
to talk about. Chris has to talk about that Mohanlal fandom resurgence he's having.
Yes.
With what's the film's title?
It's called L2 Emburan.
L2 Empuran. Why is
Yes.
it not just called L2?
Because Emburan is a mixing together of the words emperor and tamburan, which is
Ah,
god. So he's less than a god and more than an emperor. So L2
uh,
Empuran.
okay. So this Chris and Amartya will probably talk about in brief in
Yes.
the live stream we have. Both of them are very lucky and also getting to see Black Bag. So they will also be talking about that in that episode as I sit sadly and listen to them talk about it. I will talk, though, maybe more positively about Adolescence, the TV
Which I
series,
won't.
which you won't talk about positively.
I mean, I will talk about positively, maybe not as positively as
You're not
you
crazy
are.
about it, which is
Yeah.
fine. Yeah, you're not the
Yeah.
target audience.
What is that supposed to mean?
It's I mean that both as a criticism, a little bit of a criticism of the show also, in that it's
Yeah,
more of a it's targeted towards parents more as opposed to the adolescents themselves,
that
if
is
that
true.
makes sense. Anyways, we have plenty
Hmm.
to talk about in that episode, and if God forbid someone sees Sikandar, then yes, we will also talk about that. Though I please don't keep your fingers crossed for that because I am not
I
going.
might be. Let's see.
What is this with everybody? What is it? Really? Why? I'm serious. Fucking A, man. It drives me nuts. Who gives a fucking shit?